Adolf Hitler. And yes, that's right, he didn't have a middle name. Was born in Brennau am Inn, which was a town in the then Austro-Hungarian Empire, which spanned from 1867 to the end of World War I. The year was 1889, and the location of Hitler's birth was very close to the border of Germany, an empire Hitler would come to love drastically more than Austria. Hitler was one of 6 children, although 3, Gustav, Ida, and Otto, would die in infancy. The lower Bavarian accent that Hitler would become famous for was acquired when the family moved to Passau, Germany in 1892. After just 2 years, the family was back in Austria, specifically Leonding, and a year later to Hafeld, where Hitler's father, Alois, farmed and kept bees for profit. The first of many large conflicts between Hitler and his father occurred here in Hafeld, as Hitler refused to obey the strict discipline at his school. Hitler's father soon found failure in his farming effort, and in 1897 the family moved to the nearby settlement of Lambach, Austria. During the year spent here, Hitler displayed love in the possession of a good heart. He took singing lessons, sang in the choir, and even contemplated becoming a priest when he got older. In 1898, the family would move permanently back to Leonding. When Hitler's beloved brother Edmund died in 1900, it struck him heavily, changing him forever. The kid who once loved to sing and dance became morose and self-enveloped. The fights between him and his father and teachers inclined sharply as Hitler became less patient and more prone to losing control. Hitler desired to go to classical high school and subsequently trained to become an artist, a goal his father immensely rejected. Alois believed his son should follow in his footsteps and make a career in the Customs Bureau. Hitler was sent to the Realschule in 1900 and purposely did poorly so as to persuade his father to allow him to pursue his dream. Hitler's father died in 1903, and only then was Hitler allowed to drop out of school by his mother, Clara, who deeply cared for her son's mental health after the loss of his father. But Clara also knew how important school was, and in 1904, Hitler again enrolled in the Realschule, this time with a much better attitude and work ethic. Hitler did not have a plan though, and he left the institution with no clear path to follow and no desire to continue education. In 1905, Hitler and his family moved to Vienna, Austria, a region of major religious conflict and red-hot racism. Immense movements toward German nationalism had much of Hitler's district under a spell, and Adolf became inclined to learn more. Tuning in to men such as Karl Lueger and George Ritter von Schronerer, Hitler was injected with his first doses of pan-Germanism, anti-Semitism, anti-Slavism, and anti-Catholicism. These beliefs would grow and mature over time. He attempted to get into the Academy of Fine Arts Vienna in 1907 and again in 1908, getting rejected both times for being unfit for painting, even though his watercolors were quite good. He was told to go into architecture, another of his interests, but his lack of schooling barred this option almost completely. To make matters worse, his mother died of breast cancer in late 1907, and a saddened and poor Hitler was forced into homeless shelters and men's hostels. He would remain in Austria until 1913, when he received the final part of his father's estate. Many historians argue that he left Austria to escape conscription into the army, and Hitler later testified that he did not wish to serve in an army consisting of so many differing ethnicities. He was also deemed unfit for service in 1913 when he failed his Austrian physical examination, and subsequently moved to Munich in southern Germany. When World War I finally exploded in Europe with the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary, Hitler answered the call for mobilization by joining the Bavarian army. Technically, since Hitler was Austrian, he shouldn't have been allowed to enlist. Hitler served on the Western Front as a dispatch runner, spending much of his time behind the front lines. Famous battles Hitler took part in include the First Battle of Ypres, the Battle of the Somme, the Battle of Arras, and the Battle of Passchendaele. He would receive both the Iron Cross Second Class and First Class. along with the Black Wound Badge. Hitler would actually continue to produce artwork during his time in the Great War, including cartoons and newspaper instructions. When Germany accepted defeat on November 11th of 1918, Hitler was in a hospital, and he was shocked beyond belief that the German Empire had lost. He loved his time in the army and in World War I as a whole, and blamed the failure to secure victory the fall of Marxists and other civilian leaders on the home front, including Jews. The Treaty of Versailles crippled Germany with immense war reparations, military humiliation, and the unjust blame for the war as a whole. Hitler would be able to use Germany's poor economic, social, and political situation of post-World War I to assist him in rising to power. After the Great War, Hitler remained in the army as an intelligence agent and was soon tasked with monitoring the German Workers' Party, known as the DAP. Hitler was attracted to Anton Drexler, the party's founder, and his anti-Semitic, nationalistic, anti-capitalist, and anti-Marxist philosophy. Hitler soon began to perform speeches on the behalf of the DAP. Impressed, Drexler soon invited Adolf to the party in 1919. The party morphed into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, and the swastika, proposed by Hitler, was made the party's banner. In 1920, Hitler was discharged from the army and became a full-time worker for the NSDAP. His speeches became known throughout the land for their rowdiness and persuasive manner. Basically, he knew how to speak rhetorically. Regular audiences were obtained by Hitler, and many described his demeanor as simply hypnotic. Early admirers included Rudolf Hess, Hermann Goering, and Ernst Röhm, who would become the leader of the SA, a paramilitary group responsible for protecting Hitler and the Nazis in meetings and rallies, and attacking rival political groups such as the Communists. After a failed coup in Munich, known as the Beer Hall Push, Hitler was thrown in prison for high treason in 1924, for what was supposed to be 5 years. The guards were sympathetic to his cause, and after just over a year, including time on remand, Hitler was released via the Bavarian Supreme Court. While in prison, Hitler wrote the first volume of Mein Kampf, or My Struggle, an autobiography outlining his ideology and even implying genocide in some passages. From 1925 to 1929, Hitler and the Nazis struggled to gain popularity as Germany was improving in all areas. It wasn't until the stock market crash of 1929 and its impact on Germany in the years to come that he truly took the stage. From the 1928 elections to the 1930 election, the Nazi Party rose from just 12 seats to 107, as the conditions within Germany deteriorated and allowed more extreme parties to take hold. In 1932, Hitler ran against Hindenburg for the presidency, and although he lost in both rounds of the election, he acquired 35% of the vote, which deemed Hitler a strong figure in German politics. In the absence of an effective government, Hitler was appointed Chancellor in January of 1933, joining the Nazi and Hugenberg parties, creating the German National People's Party. In 1933, while the Nazis were still not in control of all-out power, with Hitler as Chancellor, Wilhelm Frick as Minister of the Interior, and Hermann Goering Minister of the Interior of Prussia, the German Workers' Party assumed control of much of Germany's police force. In February of 1933, the Reichstag was set on fire, and Hitler, along with Goering, immediately blamed the Communists for the atrocity. Specifically, Dutch communist Marinus van der Lubbe is commonly given the title as the firestarter, but many historians also point to the possibility that Hitler and his party set the fire to put Germany in a state of crisis in which civil liberties could be suspended. All the while, the SA, Social Democrats, and communist paramilitary groups waged a mini-war in the streets of Berlin, each side attempting to beat the rest into submission. In March of 1933, Hitler's government brought the Enabling Act to a vote in the Reichstag. Basically, this act would grant Hitler's cabinet the power to enact laws without the consent of the Reichstag for 4 full years. The laws created would deviate from the Constitution, but because they affected the Constitution, the act required a 2/3 majority to pass. To ensure the act passed, the Nazis arrested 81 communist deputies and made sure a good portion of the Social Democrats did not attend. When voting day came, the Enabling Act passed. Through the aftermath of the Reichstag fire and the Enabling Act, Hitler's government transformed into a sort of legal dictatorship. Instead of taking power like Mussolini had done in the 1920s, Hitler came to power in a technically legal manner and was therefore more legit. To solidify his position, Hitler and the SA got rid of anyone in their path, including Democrats, communists, and various trade unions. The German Labor Front was formed as an umbrella to represent all workers, administrators, and company owners, which reflected Hitler's goal of acquiring National Socialism. By July 14th of 1933, the Nazi Party was the only legitimate party in the country. In June to July of 1934, the SA, Hitler's paramilitary group, was purged, and its leader, Ernst Röhm, along with other SA officials, were rounded up and shot. The SA had been demanding more political and military growth, and this scared many Nazi officials that were afraid of the SA securing power from the Nazis. This occurrence would come to be known as the Night of the Long Knives, and in its aftermath, the SS, an originally elite faction of the SA, became the official paramilitary group of the Nazi Party. Not just SA members were purged, though, as surviving political, social, and objecting German military leaders were also disposed of. Some Germans saw this as murder, others as a necessity for restoring needed order. When President Hindenburg died in August of 1934, Hitler assumed full control of Germany by merging the Chancellor position with that of the Führer, or Supreme Leader. He did this through a vote in which 90% of the electoral voting was for the merge. From 1934 to the outbreak of World War II, Hitler got rid of many army staff that opposed his mandate that the Wehrmacht, or the German military, be ready for war as early as 1938. Again, he did it legitimately, and keep in mind that when I say legitimately, I mean it in a way that it was technically allowed, but that doesn't mean it wasn't corrupt. Hitler began preparing for the restoration of German might, German expansion, and German purification. Beginning in 1935, the German military was built up drastically higher than what was allowed through the Treaty of Versailles, and Germany began to expand. The Saarland united with Germany in 1935, the Rhineland was remilitarized and Austria annexed in 1936, the Sudetenland taken in 1938 after the Munich Conference, and the rest of Czechoslovakia absorbed in early 1939. Hitler also sent aid to nationalist Spain during their civil war in the later 1930s, giving his new air force, the Luftwaffe, valuable combat training. Throughout this entire time, the Allies condemned Germany loudly, but they never actually did anything but plead with Hitler to stop. France and Britain did not want another war like World War I, and in reality, by appeasing Hitler, they were creating one far worse. Hitler got away with everything he could until the Allies finally snapped with his invasion of the rest of Czechoslovakia. Poland's independence was protected by both France and Britain, but this would not stop the already oiled German war machine. But that is for another video. I hope you guys learned something that you didn't already know about Hitler, and if you liked the video, hit that like button, subscribe for more.